Do you keep attracting toxic relationships where you know they're an unhealthy match for you, but you are just stuck on them and you can't figure out why? Today, I'll teach you the one skill you need to stop attracting these kinds of unhealthy relationships. And learning this skill is going to give you the confidence to walk away the next time an emotionally unavailable man or unhealthy match for you tries to sweep you off your feet. Like Kim, who didn't trust her discernment after being hooked on a guy for over 2 years who'd only ever give her breadcrumbs and inconsistency. She learned this skill and was able to be confident and trust herself when dating, which led to her meeting and marrying the man of her dreams. If you want to be confident you'll never attract another unhealthy relationship again, I can directly help you to do this. Book a call on my calendar and speak with me directly so I can help guide you through the process. When you're stuck on loving someone who's a terrible match for you, there are two parts to this, right? On the one hand, you know that they're not right for you. They're unhealthy, they're emotionally unavailable, they're breadcrumbing you, they're just not meeting your needs in the way that you know they should be meeting them. But on the other hand, there's this incredible pull towards them. You've got this amazing connection with them. It's so strong, you feel like you have no choice in being connected to and wanting to be this person. But the result of this is that your head and your heart is out of alignment because you know these two very different realities seem to exist within you. What's lacking inside you is knowing for certain which of these two to trust, which to listen to. So self-trust inside is confused. There's a lot of internal dissonance as to which of these voices is right and is healthy for you and which of these voices you need to not listen to. So how do you get to a place where you can understand which to listen to and what can lead you to this confident sense that you need to walk away because you know something like this isn't right? And the skill that I'm going to teach you today will allow you to do that. This skill is called self-attunement. Attunement is a process that happens primarily between two people, such as the parent-child relationship, where a child is unhappy or upset and the parent notices that there is that strong emotion in the child. The parent picks up that child, sees their distress and really mirrors their emotion back to them, letting the child know that their feeling is acknowledged, they're understood in that moment, and then they go through the process of soothing and allowing the child to relax, knowing that there is that connection in place. But if you didn't get that relationship with your parent when you were very young, because perhaps your parent couldn't handle their own emotions, let alone the very big emotions of an infant, you probably learned that your strong emotions and your feelings inside were somehow inherently wrong or couldn't be trusted, particularly if that parent would tell you, it's okay, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing to be afraid of, pretty much telling that child to ignore what their sense is. So there's very strong information from your primary caregiver telling you what you're feeling is wrong, teaches you on a very subconscious level to mistrust whatever you're feeling inside. And this is what results in an insecure attachment to ourself internally. So in the place of where we didn't learn this process with our parent, we're able to actually self-attune and regulate ourselves and understand and sort through all of our big, strong, scary emotions in the place of where we didn't get this as a child. So as an adult in our adult brain and body, we now have the capacity to learn this skill, self-attunement. And attuning to yourself is really attuning to the varying emotions and the intuition that's coming up, your inner wisdom, as well as the inner parts coming up that are more uncomfortable, such as your anxiety or your uncertainty or your fear. So this attunement process is going to allow you to connect to the part that's attached to this person that you love really deeply, and the other part that knows that what that person is doing is wrong. So when you're able to attune to both of these internal parts, I'm going to show you how you then get clarity to know the difference between which is your intuition and your gut instinct and which is actually your anxiety or a kind of a trauma response in the attachment mechanism. And having this kind of clarity from self-attunement is going to allow you to always act in your own best interest in your romantic relationships. So how do we go about learning how to self-attune where we perhaps have never learned attunement, we never had it modeled to us, and you might have had a level of trauma in your past that means you are now feeling really quite disconnected from who you are. You spend a lot of time in behaviors that shut down the body, like, overeating, drinking alcohol, maybe taking drugs, and these kinds of things disconnect us from ourselves. This is a skill you can learn. It's really learning the language of your body, much like learning a foreign language. But firstly, we need to understand where you're at now, and your level of attunement at the moment to yourself is really dependent on the depth of connection you have to yourself, to your internal world, to your body's signals. So if you are externally focused and externally motivated at the moment, you might have a shallower connection to yourself. You might be always seeking levels of dopamine that get you that kind of feeling of being high, in a sense, whether it's just eating or drinking or always connecting with others and not giving yourself time to kind of pay attention to what's going on internally. What you need to do, if this is you, very gradually slow down and start to give space to the experience that you're having inside. Now, this is easier said than done because you might be running from some uncomfortable or, emotions that you are just not used to feeling, and you might have been running from your whole life. And sometimes when I speak to women, and even just someone listening to them, asking them the questions as I do on my calls, that process of just listening to them causes them to bubble over with emotion. And that tells me that they've been running from their internal emotional experience for a very long time. So I urge you to do this with caution and understand that you might have a very small window of tolerance to feeling what's going on there. So you might be best asking and getting help from a therapist or a coach or a trusted friend who can give you this space, because it is an uncomfortable experience when we finally start to listen to and feel what's going on inside us, right? The reason you're dissociated in the first place is because you've been in a trauma response where your body didn't feel safe experiencing those very big emotions when you first experienced it, which likely started in childhood when your parent wasn't attuned to you, so you learnt that those emotions weren't okay to feel. So we have to slowly turn around the way that we experience the world and the way that we live in our body, from primarily the outside in to the inside out. So instead of being hyper-focused on what's going on around us and controlling our environment around us so that we can control the way we feel, we need to look inwards and notice what our internal climate is like, what's going on a day-to-day basis and a moment-to-moment basis, because once you attune to your internal world, you'll be surprised at how quickly changing things are inside. We have a huge capacity for very interesting and varied emotional experiences moment to moment. And when you are coming from this inside out way of being, this is a very inclusive whole way of existing, because you're, instead of cutting off and axing off parts of yourself in order to be okay and, kind of push it all down and keep yourself busy, you're actually bringing all parts of your emotional experience to your day-to-day, and it can be uncomfortable, but it's also a very rich and rewarding experience too. Now, as I've alluded to, this can be a difficult and uncomfortable thing to do because you have likely disassociated because of some level of trauma, whether it was subtle neglect when you were a child or something that was more significant. And so you aren't used to feeling safe in your body when you're experiencing big emotions. So if you try and open up Pandora's box really quickly, you'll likely flood your system. So I'm going to teach you how to widen the tolerance of your body to actually feel these emotions so that you can remain safe in the body, which is your primary objective when you are learning self-attunement. And ironically, this is where self-attunement starts. We can't self-attune from the mind because living from the neck up is exactly what we've learned to do in that trauma response. Self-attunement actually starts in the body, and it often starts pre-verbally, because what we're experiencing and the discomfort of the emotions were lodged in the body before we were able to actually speak, right around the ages of 2 and 3. So we need to practice the sense of feeling without needing to constantly label the emotions, although that is a useful skill, which I'll touch on in a minute. So safety in the body can look like physical safety, obviously, making sure you feel safe in your environment and being warm and having all of your needs met, right? Being able to make sure you're well hydrated and you've eaten enough. All of those things are important, but self-attunement with safety doesn't just mean physical safety in the body, it actually means internal safety to feel and experience emotions. So feeling safe to actually feel beyond just existing. So internal safety to feel emotions is giving yourself a climate of it being okay to feel emotions. And that involves a lot of self-compassion, okay? Because when we start to feel uncomfortable emotions, our internal parts like our inner critic and our inner shame come out, and they try and beat down those emotions and tell us we're bad for feeling them, because that's the process we learnt when we were young. We need to bring self-compassion to this process because the emotions exist and they won't stop existing until they're actually felt. So when you start to feel these strong emotions, give yourself the time and experience to acknowledge that they live in you and for it to be okay, right? Compassion is that really deep feeling of thank you for being here. I understand why you're here. It's really important to me that I listen to you now, and you are welcome despite how uncomfortable you make me feel. And keep in mind that your body has been triggered by strong emotions in the past. Strong emotions are effectively the tiger in the bushes to your body. They're very scary. They will put you in fight, flight, unconsciously without you even really noticing it, while your window of tolerance is narrow. But the only way we can gradually expand our window of tolerance is to start to experience the edges of very strong emotions whilst feeling safe and accepting their presence and being compassionate towards their presence. And the way that I explain this is it's like a stovetop kettle that is boiling with water and all the steam is coming out. And what we need to do with the lid is we need to let the lid out a little bit by bit, and just let that steam dissipate inside our body, rather than take the whole lid off and completely blow our tops and get outside of our window. We don't want to do that. So just touch the edges of the emotions, just let the little top of the steam kettle out bit by bit, rather than letting yourself overwhelm yourself with feeling too much. Now, if this process is totally impossible to you because you feel completely disconnected from your emotions, that's perfectly fine and normal and okay. Like I said, this is just simply a skill that you can learn by moment, bit by bit, slowly getting used to sensing what your feelings are doing in any given day or moment, and speaking to yourself very gently and very lovingly, as if you are a parent speaking gently to a child who is extremely afraid and scared, which is effectively what your parts are if you are totally disconnected from them. So if this is totally new to you, I want to introduce you to a technique that's going to allow you to get started with feeling the big feelings in your body, so you can learn this language and connect with self-attunement to your body. So start by focusing on the primary emotions in the center of the emotions wheel. You can download this very easily. Just Google emotions wheel and notice the emotions in the middle. They're the really main primary ones. Notice the difference in your body from when you're feeling happy, sad, angry, fearful, on all those ones in the middle. So allowing yourself to focus on just those primary emotions and knowing the difference between a happy moment in your day and a sad moment in your day might sound really basic, but when you do that, you need to go through a process of self-attunement that I'll teach you now. And if you're able to kind of notice even more nuance around that emotion, do that as well. But I just want to meet you wherever you're at now. So once you're aware of a feeling, the attunement process looks like this. You start with physical awareness. So something in your frame of reference or understanding of yourself will let you know that you're happy, or let you know that you're feeling sad or upset. When you notice that feeling, I want you to pay attention to what physical symptoms are arising that are supporting your understanding of your feeling that feeling. Take notice of what your physical experience of those emotions feel like, and they're very specific to you, right? They're going to be different for everyone, but I want you to take the perspective of you're an outsider looking in on a body having an emotional experience that is either happy, or it's feeling upset, or it's feeling anxious or nervous. So you might be feeling, if you're happy, you might be feeling expanded in your chest, and you might be feeling this kind of high feeling, or your heart might be beating faster. And if you're feeling sad, you might have that opposite feeling where your body's kind of like always going downward in energy, and your heart rate might be a little bit slower, or things just might feel a little bit more lethargic, and you're struggling to kind of do the normal things that you would normally do. When you notice those physical symptoms, whatever they are, name them out aloud. Name the emotion and name the physical symptoms. So name sadness, name the chest is heavy, my body feels droopy, my breath is slower, and I have a pain in my throat, as if you are a child naming these things. Now, those of you that are aware of why attachment trauma occurs will know how important it is to really allow yourself to connect with these really basic instructions. When we were a child, we didn't learn these things. So even though we're adults, we need to go back to that child level of connection and language with ourselves, because that's our building block. Because if we're totally disconnected from where we are, we don't even have those skills. So start really simply, really gradually. Don't expect any more complex or kind of mature understandings of your body and internal experience, because that's not meeting you where you're at. Attunement needs to start with where you are at in your body at the moment. So once you've started to connect to the physical experience of that emotion, this is where the real attunement begins, right? We've noticed the signals in the body, and we've noticed this kind of feeling that we've labeled, but this is where we actually start to attune to our internal experience and work with it. So I want you to, once you've done all that, speak to yourself as if you are a wise and loving and compassionate parent speaking to a child, right? Literally, this sadness is the feeling you're working with, speak to yourself. You're feeling sad. It makes sense that you're feeling sad. I'm here for you. Let's get through this together. It might sound odd to speak to yourself like there's two people inside, but we are, remember, speaking to two different versions of our internal truth. This one version of us that, loves this person and doesn't know why, but it's just kind of like, attachment sort of, fantasy in a way. And then there's this other part within us that kind of knows that it's not right for us. We do have this inner duality, and we have other parts as well, but we need to focus on these two different parts. So allow yourself that inner wise parent, and this is the part of you that knows the person that's mistreating you isn't right for you. Allow this wise part to speak to the emotion as if the emotion is the young wounded child. So if you've ever done inner child work or inner family systems, inner parts schema work, this will be a familiar practice to you. Now, self-attunement in this process is not necessarily even just showing up and speaking to it, that part, but it's actually feeling compassion for it. The depth of your compassion and your love for this feeling and being with this emotion as much as possible is the depth of self-attunement you'll be able to do, which will allow you to release the grief and the trauma that part is holding on to that's causing the internal confusion within you. So track your physical symptoms while you do this compassion work, because they will change. Notice if that pain in your throat moves to your chest or moves to your gut. Just notice it while you're doing it. And the level at which you're able to get yourself to release emotion, which does involve crying, which is, a kind of crying where you're not making things worse, you're not contracting more, but that crying actually feels like a real release, and you feel a little bit expanded and a little bit more relief in the body. That's the kind of crying we are looking for. If you're doing this and you notice you're feeling worse and worse and worse, I need you to stop. I urge you to reach out to a therapist or a coach or a friend to help do this process with you. But the level of nurturing and love that you can feel for this part is going to be the level that you connect with it and attune to it and allow it to release its grief. So start slow, start with those very simple emotions, and then move on to those more complex emotions when you're ready, which is what I want to talk to now. So how do we attune to more complex emotions that do cause this internal confusion? For example, when you feel love for someone but you know that they're not right for you, what you are thinking love is, what you're perceiving love to be, is based on all of your past experiences, all the time that you've felt love before. But if you're disconnected at the neck and you haven't felt a whole embodied version of love, you might actually not be feeling love in the body for this person. It might be something else. It might be a maladaptive behavior that's come from your trauma responses in the past. So the mind doesn't know the difference between the two, right? What you think is love might actually be anxiety and excitement. And this is a bit of a gray area as well, because it is totally normal and natural to feel anxiety and excitement when we meet someone new, regardless of whether they're healthy or not. But in that attachment with them, when we are still feeling this version of love, which is anxiety making, it makes us feel dysregulated and we're uncertain about where they're at, and we're still trying to love them and force it on despite the fact that they're not healthy for us, they're giving us breadcrumbs or they're inconsistent. This is the kind of dissonance inside that I'm talking about, because you're attached to a feeling that isn't actually love, but your mind is interpreting it to be love, okay? You're used to only feeling love when you're in anxiety and hyperarousal, which is why we need to connect with the body's experience. And it's also why you've only ever felt kind of, healthy people are a little bit boring to you, or they don't there's no chemistry there. That chemistry is actually a maladaptive function in the body, and we've got to connect with the body's actual experience so we can attune to it and work through the complex emotions that are going on and know which is healthy for us and which is not. So when you're in this internally confused state and you feel up to this more complex technique, I want you to simply identify your body's symptoms, right? Like, what are you actually feeling in your body when you're with this person, or when you're thinking of this person from an outsider's perspective? What are they? Sweaty palms, heart racing, tightness in the chest. They're all signs of anxiety and hyperarousal. Now, if you've been dating someone a couple months in and it is a healthy situation, you should be feeling safe and grounded and secure and certain in how they're feeling towards you. There shouldn't be this kind of level of anxiety that's getting you into this kind of fear state. And like I said, the mind is interpreting that, but the body is very clear in what it's experiencing. So I want you to get really truthful with yourself. How does this person actually make you feel in the body? And just imagine, the longer you're going to stay attached to this person, the longer you are going to feel like this in the body. And I've talked to women who've been in this state for years, chronic health issues, constant stress, lack of sleep, and they've stopped being able to function well in their life, all because they're hanging on to this feeling of, I love him, the connection is amazing, but that is the interpretation of the mind, which is a maladaptive interpretation. You learned to think that you're safe in the relationship with that person when you are clearly not, because your body is feeling unsafe. Now, this same process works when you are dating, right? We want to use this process of self-attunement to learn discernment when we meet someone new. And like I said, this is a gray area because there is a period of time when we meet someone we really like and we do have those feelings of anxiety and nervousness that is also excitement. So it's a matter of being attuned to the body through that entire process and noticing and paying attention to all the other signals that are going on from them as well, to know whether they're a healthy, compatible match for you. Do you have shared values? Are their actions aligned with their words? Are they showing up to you enough to help you feel a sense of safety and security in the connection that you're forming? And are you communicating your needs, and are they able to meet your needs enough of the time? Of course, no one can meet our needs all the time, but if you've watched enough dating content on my channel, you know that there needs to be a tipping point where there is enough of the good that whatever is not so good, and certainly in the early stages of dating, there is a lot of uncertainty, but there is enough to keep you seeing that person again and just taking it date by date, whilst being very tuned to your body and noticing what's going on. Also notice the different kinds of signals in the body when you're with that person, because you will have them, right? If you're with someone who is, emotionally unavailable or withdrawn or shut down, but they're very charming, you will probably feel quite a lot of sexual attraction to that person. But at the same time, because they withdraw their love and connection frequently to you over a period of weeks or months, you'll also feel that anxiety, and it can be really internally confusing to be turned on by someone and to also be constantly in anxiety and in fear. So that internal dissonance in your body is something you need to pay close attention to and act appropriately, because that is not the way that we form a healthy relationship. Ideally, when you meet someone, there is maybe a little bit of attraction. You don't need to have it there at the start. It is something that can grow over time. And as you form a bond with that person, there is enough consistency with the way that they show up, and there is enough safety in how you feel with them in the body that there is enough raw material for you to build on each time you meet with them, and over a period of weeks and months, you eventually form a healthy, secure bond with them. So self-attunement is really key to knowing the difference between what is a healthy, compatible match and what is not for you. And this is the process that I teach my clients. And if this is something you want to do, I urge you to book a call with me. There is a link to my calendar below, and I will help guide you through this process and show you how I can get you to this place of having internal clarity and knowingness around your romantic relationships inside yourself. And here are some follow-on videos for you to watch so that you can move one step closer to feeling confident and secure in your skin and in your identity with your relationships. And for now, I will see you in the next video.